Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Impossible World podcast. Alright, now, it's been quite a bit. I always say that, but then again, this one is a little bit more, particularly so. Yes, it's been quite a little while because I've been kind of dreading this part. The reason why is because I put so much pressure on myself to deliver this thing. So we're going to try something a little different. We're going to try to not put so much pressure and just go ahead and say it. Now, whether you think it's creative, interesting, or if I even do it justice, that is all debatable and or nonsense to me at this point. But the reason why I have these kind of this aura of nervousness around talking about this idea is because I had this idea way like 3 or 4 months ago. Like the minute I started this podcast. Was the same day well, maybe in the first 16 hours I already came up with every single thing that we've been talking about, with some stuff in between that I didn't know, like conversation loops, the way things can happen and the way things fall into place, but I know where they're going to be and these cool ideas that I want to represent within a story. So, this is the one that I really like this idea, this like premise, this place to bounce around, because you guys have to realize also one of the things that I wanted from this story is for there to be like 3 jumping off points. So first we have like the whole premise of Hell Knight, boom. So now you've got your powers, you're off trying to figure things out, and people can play around with that. Then we have relics, that's another jumping off point. So now we're on a different kind of journey, and now Hell Knight ends. And now we have this whole world that's kind of starting to bloom. So we went and messed around with the dungeons, we got to get a good sense of that. It's basically this giant playground, but it's also feeding into a larger ecosystem within the world. But it's not quite a jumping off point. I mean, it is, but we're missing something immensely. It's not quite like when Hell Knight, when I was starting to introduce the relics, and you guys were like, oh, I see now. It just becomes hunt for cool powers and hunt for cool artifacts that can give you a massive advantage within this world. Cool. So then that kind of is the jumping off point. But this is the other jumping off point, and this basis slash foundation to me is the true jumping off point. And it's funny because, again, back in the day, like it's been such a long time to where my mind's wandered to other ideas and premises, like other worlds that I made in my head and other cool premises that I have after I watch a TV show. I'm like, that's such a cool premise, what if you did this, that? And then slowly but surely the old idea kind of gets buried a little bit. Now, it's not that hard to rekindle, but I am worried that I am missing some of the things that I had in that idea, the original one, right? Which I think is why it's so important to write things down, even if it's just jot point premises and stuff like that. Because if anything, you could always just go to your idea page, whether it's a Google Drive, and just see, oh, that's a cool idea, I could implement this here and add some more levity and inflict more joy into the overarching story, you know, see if it's something's getting more somber. But anyways, alas, we're just going to push on through. Hopefully we're going to do okay, and I'm going to be able to convey these ideas to you guys. So, let us get into it. Let's not hesitate, let's jump in. So, last time we left off, we introduced the dungeons. And what I wanted to do there was give you guys a greater sense of what this is going to be, and you guys to basically understand what this is. It's like a fighting ground, a battleground. It's a place for you to unlock the very thing that is new to you, which is your monster, your like aspect of carnal desire and things like this, like the ability to want to fight, the ability to want to use these abilities that are made and bred to be things that can punish and hurt other things, and all that stuff, right? But also this plays into the whole economy of the world and stuff like that. But anyways, we last left off with our characters getting out of the dungeon, recognizing their own power rating compared to the other people, as well as the dungeon. Basically, they realize because they made the best of Hell Knight, and then they didn't fight themselves the whole night. They accepted who they were and moved forward as like friends, as these understanding things to move forward. So they became stronger in that sense, and they made the best of a bad situation, and they are seeing massive benefits from that, which we will trickle on maybe in this part as well. But that's just something that's an overarching theme that you could play into your story as well, or that you're going to understand that that's something that I would have laid bare in ours as well. Whether we have the time to do all those kind of subtle things, I don't know. But, so, the last thing we left off on is, of course, them both being kind of lost in thought, not sure what exactly they should do, and they find themselves going down this road where this thick fog starts to just kind of encase them. And then for some reason, I don't know what I told you guys last part, but they come to a stop. Yeah, like they stop the car. There's this lamp, like this light pole, right where they stop, and then they realize they're getting enclosed by fog. And him and Crowley both look at each other and feel that same feeling, that pull. And this is a strong pull now, whereas beforehand it was light. And essentially what I'm getting at is there's this very, very lingering, quiet artifact pulling them towards us. And the only way that you can really find this artifact is if it's like super, super subtle, almost like a dying flame. Like a candle that's just about to blow out, so it doesn't pull you in like a truck. It's about to basically go out. But him and Crowley's driving, as well as he's talking to Grimm, and both their minds are kind of on that. And Crowley's just crazily driving and finds himself on this place, in this road that he does not understand. Ultimately finding out that, of course, they are getting pulled by this relic. So they get out of the car, and they're greeted with this lamp, as well as behind the lamp, a little bit to the left, is this gated door. And there's kind of like this giant hedge covering the entire, kind of like a fence, I guess. So him and Crowley both look at each other, and they understand this is a relic. They also feel that they like almost... It's like, again, one of the things I would love to mention if I was writing a book is to have these subliminal kind of feelings that they eventually get smarter about understanding. So it's almost like with the knowledge of you having no knowledge in this world, your monster will kind of be like, hey, just like here's an instinct, here's some passive knowledge, just so it kind of gives you less friction in the things that you do not understand. So something that they got better at going through Hell Knight is trust your instincts. So they kind of feel like, okay, well, there's this fog. It's like monsters telling me to go forward and not to run back, and it's usually a pretty good deterrent whether what it can handle and what it's sensing is bad. So him and Crowley open the gate and walk forward, both while talking probably about what are we doing here? Do we even need this relic? I just want to go to sleep. Maybe Crowley says he's done with it, he's tired, but Grimm pushes forward because he's kind of like the person who I just want to have that ability, that thing that he's like a magnet for crazy. I want that to be the thing. Anyways, so as they're making their way through this dark kind of thing, and at this point it's like roughly nighttime, not that much light left in the sky. But as they start making their way through this gate and they come across some trees, they're met with this giant kind of Castlevania old as shit house. But it's broken down to shit. Like half of it's like this giant mansion-like house, but half of the house is like caved in. There's a tree that embedded itself in it. It's like crumbling. It's got a bunch of vines all over the place. The grass is kind of wild and not tame. It looks wet everywhere, looks damp, looks unkept. And as they're walking down this path towards the house, Crowley points out that this place is a piece of shit and it's falling apart. But Grimm sees in the window, kind of like this main hall, that there's a light. So he's like, well, looks like someone's home. Let's go see. And sure, let's say Crowley pulls out a gun, like almost, okay, I know how this goes. It's a relic. We're gonna kill some things, shoot some things, win, let's do this. But Grimm is like coldly quiet, and maybe even when they're approaching the door to finally enter the house, Crowley ponders why, like asks Grimm why. And Grimm, of course, replies that there's no need to be hostile. And Crowley doesn't really understand why, but this is something I want to kind of play with, which is Grimm's beasts, I guess. Like his animal, his monster is way more instinctual based than Crowley's. Crowley's is more about like power, domination, trickery, that kind of thing. Like being able to pick up when someone's about to double cross you, stuff like that. It would play into that. Whereas Grimm's is more about like being able to sense conflict and danger, that kind of thing. But anyways, as they make their way into the house, they are greeted with this beautiful, not that beautiful. Okay, so they open the door. And they were greeted with this old, like Renaissance, Italian kind of look to this whole open hall. And everything from the wallpaper to like the furniture to some of the lights are cracked and scraped and like torn a little bit. Everything looks like it's falling apart, like it's withering away. It also, just to give you an idea, this is like a mansion kind of vibe is what I want. So when they walk in, it's a pretty big open ceiling with maybe 2 levels. So there's like an upstairs, and there's a railing covering the upstairs with 2 staircases kind of leading up somewhere. Anyways, in the far back wall, so when you enter, if you look straight ahead of you, there's this kind of desk, kind of like a reception place, like a place where if you were to sell rooms, this would be the like a receptionist kind of place, kind of like a hotel-ish vibe. Anyways, So, as they're walking forward and they're seeing that everything is, you know, torn apart and just like really like went to shit, basically, it's an old ass mansion kind of thing. They see that there's this figure, this kind of shape behind the desk, the reception desk, whatever. So anyways, as Grimm takes 2 steps forward and Crowley kind of is like, wait, maybe we should stop. As Crowley whispers that to Grimm, that shape, this kind of like broken down shape by the desk, perks up. And what we see before us, ladies and gentlemen, is this old, and the best way I could describe it, is this like withered doll. Maybe not doll, but that's the best way I could describe it to kind of make sense. Think of this old kind of lady with like really dry, stringy hair with like cracks on her face, as if her face is made of like porcelain or like clay. So there's these cracks on her face, but she still looks very, very human, like skin and all that stuff, but there's just these odd normalities within her, I guess. Regardless, her shoulder looks like it's kind of offset heavily. Her other shoulder is kind of higher, kind of anchored towards her neck more. She moves kind of really like she's made of straw, like kind of just this jarring kind of. What I'm getting at is there's this very broken looking person there, and she has like very frizzy hair, and it got like leaves, dried leaves and shit in there, and she has these glasses that are cracked to shit. They're these giant circular saucer glasses. They're broken to shit. But anyways, this shape, this human, this person, looks up and sees Grimm standing there. And just like, and again, I wanted there to be this moment where it's just like everything around them is screaming like there's this, it's like a graveyard kind of vibe. It's like this old Transylvania kind of freaky aesthetic all around them, except everything's torn to shit and old and decayed. And then you have this person who's terrifying by all accounts. But because Grimm basically trusts so much in his instincts to where he doesn't think this is bad or at all, he doesn't react heavily, whereas Crowley's kind of very, very much on the defensive. But the first person that she sees is Grimm, who isn't like brandishing a weapon, who isn't doing any of that, whereas probably Crowley would be. Let's say that Crowley's pointing a gun at her like, whoa, whoa. But anyways, as soon as she sees Grimm, she lights up like crazy. And this is to me what I wanted for there to be this contrast within characters. So yes, you have this like very terrifying looking person, but she has like a very bubbly and amazing personality. So she's very kind and happy and jolly. So as soon as she sees Grimm and even Crowley, she lights up. And as soon as she sees you guys, let's say more lights around the like basically like the reception area, the inn where you like check in if this was a hotel, all the lights like turn on, or much more lights turn on, and it almost seems like the house kind of reacts when she perks up and she sees you and she starts speaking to you, and she basically says, "Oh my god, guests, this is amazing, this is fantastic." And Grimm, kind of at a loss, just says hi, and she's, again, the one thing I wanted to get at is that she's so excited. She's like, she hasn't seen a human being in years, that kind of idea, like that level of like, oh god, this is wonderful, welcome, like this just overjoyed bubbliness. And Grimm kind of keeps riding those waves and says, "Hi, it's been nice to meet you. What's going on here?" Kind of trying to inquire. And again, I would like to do more dialogue stuff here, but let's just kind of go by it because I don't want to do the whole cringe fest and me kind of going back and forth what they want to do. But there are some scenes that I have in my head vividly that I still remember that rekindled when I was just even thinking about this morning. One of the things I thought would be a really, really cute moment would be, well, let's not get there just yet. Okay, so when they go up to the person, she basically explains that she hasn't had a guest or a headmaster in forever, and she's just so happy to see someone who has graced her halls, and all that stuff. So Grimm kind of asks, "Okay, well, I'm kind of getting the feeling of some sort of artifact being here. Does that make any sense to you?" And she says, "No, I don't know what an artifact or whatever that is means." But then she kind of pivots and says, "Well, I don't know what that means, but I really hope you would stay. And I've actually been looking for someone to be like the headmaster of this place, because as you can see, it's seen better days." She says this. And Grimm kind of goes, wait, like, well, first of all, there's no relic, weird. Second thing, what do you mean headmaster? Third of all, why does that have to do with the shittiness of this place? Like, does that mean a person has to like pay for all this? Like, he's kind of in this like lull. And I don't want to get into it too much, but basically she explains that she and the house are connected. And to me, this is an idea that I first seen way back in the day, which is, it's called Monster House, I believe is what it's called, but it's basically like a living house. It was an okay movie. But then the idea that I seen much better executed was a show called Altered Carbon. It's pretty decent. It's a sci-fi show, but it has this lovely character who is basically an AI that is tied to these futuristic homes, but they are incredibly what's the wording? They're very, very protective slash possessive slash like tsundere level or yundere level of like, my human, leave my human alone, I'll burn the world for my human kind of like thing. So it's like these homes that have a very, very strong connection and a protective instinct to their housing people, whole housing, yeah. So yeah, to me that's just kind of an interesting concept and idea, but that's not how I actually fell on this idea. Basically what I really wanted was I wanted there to be a way for our characters to basically attain a house, but because when I was in the heyday of making this premise, I really started taking inspiration from video games. So one of my favorite mechanics in video games is when you have a base. And you guessed it, my favorite mechanic is being able to build that base up to being a fucking tank of a base, to have every kind of amenity, to have like, to go from trash to riches. That's my favorite thing. And with our characters being very quick as a whip, they grind, they're pretty intense in that sense, or they're ahead. All of these things, that to me makes for a very interesting premise to play with. And we're gonna kind of get into that right now. But anyways, after she's done explaining the fact that she's basically a living home, she's like, her and the house are connected perfectly, but that is also why she is falling apart. And let's say after she says that, well, this is the scene that I've seen in my head that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because I think it's kind of cute and it kind of represents her character a little bit. But as she's explaining, like, me and the house are connected, and as you guys can see, the house, and largely as well me, has seen better days. And as she's saying this, she has this crazy, like, super frizzy, stringy hair with these giant glasses, cracked glasses as well. She has like a cracked face. And everything just looks super disheveled. She's got dirt on her face, her clothes are all fucked, her body's slightly contorted. Anyways, there's this spider that drops right down from her hair, and she sees both Grimm and Crowley looking at the spider like, uh-oh, gross. And she looks over and sees it on her hair and immediately fucking freaks out like, oh god, please get it away from me, get it away from me. Because there's so many moments in these shows where like a spider will drop down on you and they'll like take it or like eat it or something gross, where I would just love for there to be a very human moment of like, oh fuck, oh god damn, oh, it's disgusting, get it away from me. So I thought that would be a really endearing moment. But anyways, long story short, she explains that again, basically the whole premise, I don't know what you guys want to call it, it could be like a curse, maybe she was cursed where her and this house have to be one, and all these things, but she also gained a plethora of power to be able to do that, to shape the house and all that stuff. But then she also explains that she is in need of like kind of a headmaster, what is the word? It's like the person that runs the house, or a person that's like the head of the house, the person that like manages financial shit, that kind of stuff. Regardless, she is in need of that. So she says, could one of you be that for me, so that like this can be good? And then she makes a good plea, kind of like a pleading bargain with them, being like, I could fix everything up, it would look nicer, all I would need is some help here or there, and I'd be able to make everything way nice or better, you know, kind of pleading with the protagonist and Crowley as well. And what do you call it? Crowley kind of brings, like, let's say that he brings Grimm and kind of like a headlock to kind of whisper at him and say, we don't need this. This is not good. We don't want more shit to have to try to manage and do. And let's say that there's this nice moment where after Crowley's done talking to Grimm, Crowley kind of steps forward and he's like, see, let's, you know, we don't need this, let's go. And he starts walking forward, and after Crowley's done trying to plead with Grimm, he looks at Grimm as he looks back, and he sees Grimm's kind of eyes change, like there's shifts and there's this difference, maybe a facial change, whatever. But as he's trying to plead with him, he sees that Grimm kind of gets taken to zones out. So then Crowley goes and looks at what Grimm is seeing, and what he's seeing is this lady kind of stump, like, how do I put it? She's kind of like, she's not like, I don't know how to put it, but she looks like there's no hope anymore. You know what I mean? Like, she looks like she's thoroughly like, yeah, like, why would anyone want to have this kind of home, to have this to help me, and it's like this ultimate moment of seeing someone who is not only visually broken. That's we'll get into it later on, but that's like is genuinely what I wanted to kind of represent with this character, and we'll get into what she's been through, because you're not the first head of the household that she has had. But to me, that's one of the things I wanted to kind of build on, is this idea that there is this literal manifestation of brokenness, of hopelessness, of a flame about to just wither out, flicker out. I mean, so to me, this was a good example of Crowley sees this shift in Grimm, his eyes twinkle, there's something to where Grimm just charges straight on forward, and says, yes, I would like to take on whatever responsibility you would need of me, kind of thing. Because again, it's the whole idea of, and we kind of messed around with this when we gave Crowley his ring, but it's the idea of people who are really, really broken and know that, have this yearning, this hope, this desire to help, not piece people back together necessarily, but help people grow, piece them back together, maybe. That's whatever it is, whatever way you want to kind of say it, has this desire. So Grimm, for the first time ever, Crowley sees this part of him which is just like, boom, like a truck, like this unrelenting force, like nothing in the world can stop him from these 10 steps that he took to go to the counter to basically say, yep, whatever you need from me, I'll do it. Again, I wanted this to be like this fast, boom, 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 boom kind of thing. And I also like the idea of showing this part of Grimm to Crowley, because this is something that is endearing to Crowley as well, but also fearful, because he's like, wow, you went from nothing to 100% really fast, to where like people could manipulate you if that's the case. But we could also just say that Grimm is a pretty good judge of character. But that's something we can mess around with in the future kind of arc, where we can kind of show Crowley that no, it's not that he's well, maybe we could even go deeper in it, when we could even say, well, it's not that, like, the truth is, our main character doesn't actually need Crowley, but Crowley needs the main character, but also it's not true, you know, but it'd be this moment where Crowley could have this weird sense of understanding. I don't know. Coffee. Okay. The very enthused spirit / home, whatever, it says, yes, you'll do this for me, great, and immediately presents you with a contract, kind of like, yes. And Grimm, quick as a lightning, signs his name. Boom. And then Crowley kind of steps forward and is kind of like, what the hell? You think before you do anything. You're moving way too quick. I really should have came up with a name for this person, because I came up with a lot of like ideas for her. But anyways, she hints at Crowley like, oh, well, there's two spaces. There's like the headmaster, and then there's the basically second in command. I don't know what you'd call that, but like the second headmaster kind of person. Anyways, so then Crowley says, fuck, okay, fine. So then he signs his name, kind of being like, all right, well, idiot, if you're stuck in this, well, then I'm going to be stuck in this too, because I don't know, I guess this is what we're doing now, kind of like, fuck, making it up as we're going along kind of thing. Anyways, so now, both him and Crowley are locked in. So now there is this long-winded conversation that they have, which again, if I had more patience, and or this was in the very heyday that I was making this part up, but that was like 4 months ago, which I'm surprised I remembered most of the things I did. And honestly, I could go on about like what they talk about, but I just feel like it's a little much. You guys, I think, can largely understand what's happening, and I prefer to do it this way. Now, this way is this way. Essentially, they go ahead and talk about the what was happening with this whole house and all that stuff. And essentially, Grimm and Crowley both come to the understanding of, okay, you are an artifact. You're just an artifact that is basically shattered to shit. Like it's an artifact that's broken. This is the part where it kind of gets gamey, which I like a lot. Which he says, okay, well, there's actually ways to repair the house, and then repairing the house would in turn repair me. So she pulls out this book and says, well, there's a bunch of things that we could do. There's a bunch of ways that we can upgrade, or fix me up, or do whatever. I also think it'd be funny to hear someone like refer to themselves almost like a car. Like, you fix me up, you give me this cool ability, and then I could do this, and I could go really fast, like something like that. Anyways, get a little too rambly and jumbly. But she brings out this book that's basically covered with various different upgrades. Kind of like, hey, do you want to unlock the second wing of the house that had this tree fall into it, or like, do you want to till the grass, that kind of stuff? Do you want to make a whole new extension to the basement? Do you want to like add this and that and whatever? Do you want to make things stronger generally so that like things, it will take like a fucking warhead nuke to even crack us, you know, stuff like that. So she starts explaining all these things, and then Crowley ponders, well, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to do this? Like how do we purchase these upgrades? And she says, well, there's two ways. Way one is to just give me a boatload of experience. So you're not experience, sorry, that's the wrong way of saying it. She says you basically need to give me your power. So I'm not sure if we want to go into like there's such a thing as like mana or whatever in this world, but she basically hands Grimm these tools, these like two, I don't know what you want to call them. Let's say they're like these two orbs, and she says all you need to do is push your mana or your life force or your power into them, and then just deposit them in this kind of bowl, whatever. And depending on how intense or strong your power is, that can give you a certain amount of points to upgrade me and all that kind of stuff. But then she also says that if you do just want to do this brute force way, you can just give me something called the same currency that you'd get in the dungeons. So basically you have basically three ways of spending. You can spend your currency on the shops, or you can spend the currency in the house to get upgrades, or you can give raw power with these kind of orbs, these kind of things, like these kind of like powered batteries that you fill up, and then you give them to her, and then she powers them up, and she allows you to spend these points on something. So there's two forms of currency that can level this person up. And here's another scene that I kind of thought about in my head with this kind of premise going on. But she hands these two orbs to Grimm, and he starts, as soon as she starts saying all you need to do is push your power into them, and they'll suck it up, and we'll be good to go. So then Grimm starts doing that, and let's say Crowley and her are talking, while Grimm is trying to do this. And let's say that there's like this tiny little twinkle, and Grimm's like, well, that's not enough. So then Grimm starts pushing a lot harder, and then while her and Crowley are talking, they just hear this body drop, like this body, boom, 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 gone, dropped. And then Crowley runs over to help him, and she does too. Fast forward 10 minutes, and Grimm kind of comes to, and he asks what's going on. And essentially, he says, well, you basically used way too much power. You like threw a fuck ton of power into these bulbs, whatever. She starts pleading, saying sorry, and let's just say that she's very like I want to imply that, let's say that instead of saying all this dialogue, I want to imply with this character that you feel a tremendous sense, especially in this moment, of kind of fear, and sadness, and also like hatred for oneself. But basically the idea is that I want to get across is that she has had previous like people that ran the mansion or whatever be fucking vicious and horrible, but now this is kind of a tropey and a bit what do you call it, goofy, or I don't know what the word is, lame maybe. But I wanted the main character, and on many cases for in the future, if we ever continue the series, which we probably will, for there to be this like the way he handles things is different. I think that'd be really endearing. So as soon as he comes to, she's pleading with him, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do this, I'm such a screw up, I should have mentioned this, I'm sorry. Only for Grimm to basically be like, no, it's on me, I was stupid, I should have asked more questions and found out this more. And for her to kind of be taken back by the fact that like, you're not going to yell at me, you're not going to be upset, you're just going to move on and not do anything or say anything, like this weird sense of whatever. And let's say Grimm kind of, no, let's not say that. I actually would like if Grimm didn't pick up on any of that. He just moved on. Because I think I would like that. I think that's more pure. Is when someone is just being them, and by virtue of just being them, it's like you don't realize how unique that is. That like how unique and how amazing that trait of just being able to forgive and forget is. Anyways, regardless, let's say just Grimm picks up those two orbs and says, okay, well, what can I do with these? And he hands them to her, and she says, well, there's a bunch of things that you can do, and let's say that there's this. Because Grimm just seen that she was super remorseful and all that stuff, he kind of feels responsible and a little bit sad that she felt so strongly about a mistake, you know? So then he asks her, okay, well, what do you want? What do you want to upgrade? Oh, and this is the one thing that I also wanted to talk about. So she can either basically, the way the kind of power system works is you can like give her your power basically, and she can use that power to channel magic to basically fix things, you know, levitate this, you know, straight up, what do you call it, Beauty and the Beast kind of level of like commanding mops to mop the floor and shit with magic. Or you can give them you can give her a bunch of money and she can employ otherworldly dimensional kind of people to help fix it up, and etc. So that's kind of the way she's doing it. So anyways, you give her this raw power, and let's say she's like blown away at how much you just did. Like almost always people use money to kind of get around fixing things and etc. But she said, holy shit, your raw power was enough. And the reason why I would want this to be the case is because I want in this moment for there to be as much punch as I possibly can for this person that felt alone, broken, and thrown away, for her to be like, holy shit, things are changing, and like they change in a second. Like things can go from utter shit to impossible to believe that this is happening very fast. I wanted that to be kind of a moment and something that she has to kind of like handle, because again, all of her previous headmasters were just like shitty, trashy bastards, basically. But then here's these two new younger heads of the household that are like way fucking strong, as well as are seemingly kinder. And in the future, I would like to have even Crowley to have his moments of like, Crowley's maybe a little more rough, but he's the person that you want to still be in the same room with you. You know what I mean? Like he's the kind of person that's going to keep you and everyone else safe. Maybe not even safe is the right word. He's the person that will make a plan ahead. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, you're just as worthy almost, in that same sense. Oh, so yeah, and again, the thing that sucked is I had all these like visual representations for everything. So I had these orbs that would basically slide in. Actually, I don't think they were orbs. I think they were like cylinder discs, like these tubes, like almost like these I don't know, like batteries, except a little bit more meatier. So then you just slide them into these tanks. And when she goes to pull up like this, the way that you basically convert your power to give it to her, you would slide in these tubes into this kind of like roulette spinning kind of top. You know, have you ever seen like how scientists mix vials? They put all these little discs in this like little circle and it spins, kind of like that. So anyway, she puts these two cylinders, let's change it, into this kind of like battery holder slot, sure. But Grimm also notices that there's tons of other little slots all around them. There's like let's say 10 or 8 battery discs. But anyway, she pops these two into the other ones, and then Grimm of course says, well, you can upgrade whatever you want. And again, the reason why I want to do that is to also incite that again, like this is not like the old. Because that's what I've also think about, is I also think this is a person who's been lost, thrown away, and forgotten. This kind of like house. And I always think of like some sort of old rich tycoon who's a dickhead, doesn't care about anything, hates the world. For her to have now these like kinder, softer, well, one of them is softer, kind of people, and for there to be these moments to kind of hammer that home. So of course Grimm's saying, hey, buy whatever you want. So she opens up some wings to the house, kind of like cleans up some places, makes things look a little more nice. Still things are a shithole. Things are still falling apart and things are gross, but at least there's no like direct airflow getting sucked out of the, like heat getting sucked out of the house and that kind of stuff. So things are at least insulated a little bit now. With the addition of the one wing being kind of quarantined off because there's a tree embedded in it and shit. But anyways, and with that, you actually see as she does that, I don't know, what do you want to do? Mary Poppins, she whisks her finger in the air, and then bang, the house kind of shakes and moves, and you see cracks in the ceiling kind of get sealed a little bit, and you see all of this kind of stuff happen. Now, as the house is getting pieced together, you also notice that this person, her back kind of gets pulled back into place, like almost reshifted to where now she looks a little bit less like completely withered and broken away, and some of the cracks in her face and skin, and even a little bit in her glasses, kind of comes and heals. So of course we're getting at the idea of, I would love so badly for there to be this, like, you guys remember, I don't know why, but I constantly see the image of, Harry Potter. In one of the Harry Potter movies, there's like this kooky old lady who has like these super giant glasses and like crazy frizzy hair, and she's like, I think it's in the one where Sirius Black is in it. Chamber of Secrets, the one after that one, Regardless, I see her, that old lady with the like crazy saucer glasses, as well as like the crazy hair, and she kind of talks in riddles and it's she seems lovely. But what do you call it? That's what I see in this instance. But I want to see that probably worse it off. You know, she has cracks in her skin, kind of looks like a porcelain face, but that porcelain face is starting to come back into fruition and like heal with each kind of investment into the house. So with Grim seeing that, Grim kind of like gets a fire under him to be like, holy shit, I can heal you. I can piece you back together. And that's such a very endearing feeling. So anyways, we're going to do a lot of kind of moving on, basically. So let's say that she basically escorts both Crowley and Grim to their respective different rooms. And yeah. But one of the things that Grim does do is Grim asks for more batteries. And the lady... the house basically says, well, why do you want more batteries? You've already done enough. What use could you have for more of them? So then Grim just says, I just have an idea. I like to maybe chip away when I can, that kind of thing. So she's like, oh wow, okay, you're very sweet, and gives him like the rest of the batteries that he can use. Because it's kind of like a somewhat limited process, because she basically has the power, but she still needs to like push so you make use of it, basically. So it's not like you just dump a bunch of power and just the whole house could be fixed overnight. It's almost like, well, you're only paying for like the magic source of like, you know, brooms and levitation and stuff like that. I'm getting really nerdy into the fucking gritty of it. Regardless, she gives Grim the batteries. She also leads them into their respective houses, and she escorts Crowley, and then she escorts Grim. But as she is escorting Grim, they have a little talk. I don't want to go into what the talk could be. It probably is just her basically saying thank you, and maybe on the verge of giving up hope or something. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we want to keep her quiet and silent about this, and then. Yeah, let's do that. Let's just say she's silent. She's just very polite, almost like a maid, and she leads them into this room, and it's a pretty big room. And Crowley's is a pretty big room too, but Grim, because he was the asshole who signed him being the headmaster or whatever, gets a pretty big room. Crowley makes up for it. Crowley gets a whole fucking battle garage basement in the future. But anyways, so both him and Crowley go to sleep, except well, let's do it this way. So then it's morning, and by the way, the rooms are disheveled, there's dust everywhere, there's some cobwebs up in the ceiling, but there's a nice bed, so let's go sleep in the fucking bed. So then they both go out, they knock themselves out, they go to sleep. Well, one of them does. Crowley has a good sleep, Grim kind of has a rough sleep. So anyways, Grim walks down the stairs, and he sees Crowley talking to the house, and Crowley slept on it, and he thought, okay, well, this is actually not the worst case scenario, because we do need a base of operations. So that the whole morning he got up early and was talking to the house, basically inquiring on what they can do, how they can make this thing fortified, how they can make this thing better. So one of the things that he found out immediately was Crowley found out that basically this whole place is being shielded by fog, so most people can't even find it. Almost nobody can find it unless the people, the headmaster wants it to be found by those people. So Crowley kind of figures that out and thinks, okay, well, this is actually, now we're good. And then Crowley kind of gets really on the idea of upgrading, because Crowley is a craftsman. So the idea of making this house his fucking warlord castle is appealing to him. So he's like, okay, so now he's a little more on board, he's a little more relaxed. He's talking to the house lady, kind of like coming up with plans that he wants to do in the future, to like see if they're eligible to do it. And let's say there's some resistance where she's like, well, yes, I can do this. It's just gonna take some like a lot of good foreground effort, and I don't really have that right now unless there's some sort of money thing. Crowd's like, we'll figure that out like 100%. I just want to know if this is possible. If this is possible, then I can make some shit happen, kind of thing. And Crowley's even like, I can help. I can help piece this shit back together. Anyways, so as they're talking, Grim kind of joins the conversation. And let's say they're doing this at like, there's not that many wings of the house unlocked. There's only like basically the staircase leading up to like the rooms, as well as the main entrance, the hall. So they're talking right where like the secretary kind of look of place is. Anyways, it's kind of a jumbled mess in my head. But Grim comes down the stairs, and Crowley says, did you sleep well? And Grim says, no, not at all. But then Grim basically drops all of those power cells that were all around the thing onto the desk. And Crowley is speechless. But the house lady is jaw drops so hard that it cracks. It cracks a little bit. The house shakes. It's like, oh shit. Well, but essentially Grim goes and ponders, and this is an idea I had about like how to fuck with power and shit. is, okay, we'll say there is this case where, like, okay, you can power up these cells, and these cells can help give the house power to help fix itself, to help manage all this kind of shit. Good, right? Well, Grimm quickly came to the understanding of, hey, well, my power regenerates at some point, so all I need to know is the time in which my power regenerates. And then he does some quick math in his head about, okay, well, we played a lot in Hell Knight. I say the hardest I ever went was the graveyard, and I think I recharged probably this much. Let's say 2 hours. Let's say 2 hours it takes me to get back to full. So he's like, okay. So then basically he has the idea of, okay, well, what if I set a timer on my phone every 2 hours? I wake up, I push as much power I can into this. I get knocked unconscious. I wake up. I put power in this. I set an alarm for 2 hours. So basically, every single hour, every 2 hours, he woke up, threw power into this. It knocked him unconscious, put him right back to sleep. It made him recover just as fast. And then he keeps just doing this. So then he did that every hour on the hour or whatever. And he came downstairs with almost all of these power cells full of juice, maxed out. And that's something I wanted to also explain, is that when he first gave her the first power cell, she was like, holy shit, this is a lot. But that's also because he pushed so much of his energy into it that it is really, really dense. Whereas most people would just trickle a little bit and then give it to them. Grimm put all of it into one little cell, which was a great deal of energy in that one cell. But then that's also, no one told Grimm that, like, that's too much almost. So I think it'd be funny if he came downstairs, and that's something that's a trope that I love in shows, where like the main character does something stupid and like too much, almost like excessive with just because no one told him what normal was. And he just, because when someone doesn't tell you what like normal is, you have a tendency to exceed normal or undershoot normal. But most of the time I like it when they exceed normal, or what is normal. So anyways, yeah, so let's say mouth drops, Grimm explains what he did, and Crowley said, holy shit, that's actually pretty clever. Like, I didn't really think about the way, like, that's all that you would need for that. This is kind of where I want the jumping off point to be. And let's say Crowley says, hey, well, with this much here, could you just give you an understanding of, could we, like, do this? And she's just like, yes, like, this is nuts. Like, this would take me, like, from all the previous people that have had be the master of this household have not come close to this. Like, that's insane that you do this in one night. Like, she's just broken. That's why I would like the idea of her jaw dropping so much that it cracks and the house kind of fucks up a little bit because of her own shock and awe. But she's like, yes. And at this point, I wanted to change within her a little bit, to where she recognizes these two as not like, they're not playing by the same rules anymore, and neither should she. So she goes into like hopeless mode, who is super broken and sad, and this to, I got this. You guys are gonna be with me. Okay, then if you're riding with me, then not a single fucking person is gonna be able to do that. So then she goes ham into like coming up with these defenses, these everything. And this, ladies and gentlemen, with both Crowley and this withering person, I guess, house lady, all surrounding this kind of like, I guess they're like dinner table a little bit. It's like kind of like just a secretary desk with all of them kind of sitting around it talking. This to me would be where I would like to do the jumping off point. And yeah, because essentially what I want to get at, and I think I want to do one more little part of like, I don't want to do a time skip without explaining the time skip. The time skip to me would just be a good way of not having to dilly-dally and just kind of fucking go. You know what I mean? To like move through everything. But this, ladies and gentlemen, for the most part, is the jumping off point. Our main characters now have a house and a kind of like a base of operations that can be upgraded heavily. And that's something that I really, really, really want to mess with in the future. I have like 3 upgrades that I think could be fun for narrative stories that we could give her, which are badass. But also, every time you upgrade the house, she becomes more and more less disheveled, less cracked, less broken, and of course that's going to end in her being absolutely beautiful and all that lovely stuff. So, and also it's a nice representation, because along the way, Grimm, I would like there to be moments where Grimm is just, how do you say it, like accepts. That's kind of like the trope that I really like in shows, is when the main character, just by virtue of accepting other people and being kind and not judging other people, that goes a long way. You know, that goes a really long way. At least I feel it goes a long way. So anyways, that is essentially the jumping off point to some extent. I want to quickly ramble. One of the scenes that I thought I want to do, and I hope I don't forget about, is a scene where we fast forward, I think it was 2 weeks, maybe? Yeah, 2 weeks into the future. Which at this point, Grimm they've already delved pretty hard into the dungeon. Grim has experienced his full moon. Crowley's they kind of have a greater sense of how they should affect the world and all that kind of stuff. But where I want it to pick up is this scene. So him and Crowley are both going down the street, and Crowley at this point is settled. He's smooth sailing. He knows what he is. He's in a nice fucking suit. They just got out of the car. They're heading towards this kind of like shop. This just normal food shop. It's kind of like tiny little cafe on the side of the road. So as they're walking down the street, getting out of their car, everything is things are going awry. Like a person on the other side of the street falls right on his face. Let's say he has an iced coffee, he slips, falls, iced coffee bursts all over his chest as he impacts on the ground. He's like, ah! And as they're reaching the cafe, they're also by a set of lights, and there's a person who's daydreaming at the red light, and the person honks, and that sends the person who is in front of the car like a shiver, like, oh fuck, I was daydreaming and I just got freaked out and scared. So then the dude rolls down his window, flips him off, and then goes forward. And let's say that there's even just all shit like that, just stuff that's like super inconvenient, shitty stuff. Let's say even like bad shit where a person like straight up like eats shit and smashes his face into like a stop sign because he was looking at a hot girl or something like that. Like just these kind of tiny little chaotic things. Anyway, so then they get to the cafe. And Crowley sits down and he goes, oh man, I don't even need to eat anything. What we're getting at is the fact that Crowley feeds off despair, and Crowley bought that perk a while back that basically allows him to kind of like play the like change something so small that can like reshape the battlefield. But Crowley also mainly uses it for his source of despair, his source of negative emotion. But Crowley's again a really, really good person at heart, so he doesn't like destroy lives for the sake of this ravenous power. Instead, he just kind of flips things, like snaps his fingers, and some stuff kind of goes wrong. There's some frustration, there's some annoyance, and he feeds off of that and moves forward. Now, I wanted there to be this scene where Grim gets into the cafe and orders a fuck ton of food and just starts mowing through food, only for this person to come up to Grim and say, okay, sir, well, if you're gonna order more, I think it'd be fair if you paid for what you already ate, because you ate a lot. Here's the invoice, or the whatever, I forget what it's called, the bill. Here's the bill for the food. And Grim kind of goes, oh shit, I'm not sure if I have enough, and then he kind of freaks out, and then Crowley pulls out this card, and it goes through, lovely jubbly, and then she's off to bring Grim more food. And essentially, what Crowley explains is that he found a skill, or he didn't find a skill. He was able to craft this cool demon, like it's like a credit card with this what do you call it, pentagon on it, that basically gives Crowley unlimited money to some extent. It basically just tricks machines, but also Crowley has some illusion magic, or not illusion magic. He basically can craft something that is so perfect and identical to real money that it's impossible to tell, and like, I mean impossible to tell. There's no way to tell that it's not real money. So basically, Crowley has found a way to kind of offset that. Now, let's say Grim kind of ponders about like, oh, well, I'll pay you back. Do you want, like, I have a lot of the money from the dungeon. I could just give you that. And then Crowley says no. And I wanted there to, and again, I kind of just breezed by this because I didn't want to forget about this. So if me in the future, if you ever watch this back for reference, if you want to actually write this down into like somewhat of a conclusive story, I wanted there to be this moment where Grim never once looks at Crowley in a bad way, in terms of like seeing what he does as evil. You know, he never questions once, for even a second, that Crowley is evil, malice, bad at all. And Crowley sees that, and he's baffled by that as well. Even when, you know, there's times when Crowley goes a little too far, and maybe he causes a slight wreckage. So where like this person rear ends the shit out of the person at a stop sign, but doesn't hurt any of them, but it maybe gives him some whiplash. Even when he does stuff like that and he realizes, holy shit, I went pretty hard into that one, he looks over at Grim, and Grim is kind of just stone-faced, looking forward, just doesn't care. And Crowley will even like kind of draw attention to it, like, what do you think about that? And Grim just doesn't care. Now, why does Grim not care? And I think Crowley kind of figures this out as well. Grim doesn't care because it's entirely necessary that Crowley does that. Like, it's like, okay, what's the alternative? You die? Do it then. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that weird, like, no, do it then. If it means you live and people have to deal with some inconvenience, sorry, you think it's any worse than a vampire having to suck someone's blood? Like, it's like Grim has this way of rationalizing it super, super easily. So Crowley, in Fold, has a way of kind of, he finds a way to kind of equal out Grimm. So Grimm has a ravenous hunger where he can either spend his money on this like kind of moon bar, what did we come up with, moon bar, or he can eat a fucking copious amount of food. And Crowley does like to go out and go for dinner with him. It's kind of like this, like you hanging out with your buddy, talking kind of moment. Get away from the blood and the guts of the dungeons, getting away from the house and just kind of hanging out with your friend, having a meal or whatever. And also this is a part of Good Omens that I thought I would love to work into our story, because that's kind of the best friend dichotomy of that wonderful show, Good Omens. So to me, this was a kind of a way for Crowley to both recognize, like, you never judge me for what I need to do, so why not I help you as well with what you need to do. Also, it's not that hard for, like, I made this card because I wanted to basically rule, like, have zero, not let the human world fuck with me, basically. So it's all I gotta do is just give it to you for a couple seconds and do that. So that is basically what Crowley does. And let's say Crowley even gives him a mimic card the same as his. So it's like, if you want to buy anything, here you go. But a lot of stuff that they find value in is in the what do you call it, the dungeon. So it's like the currency is limited, but I just thought there would be this nice moment that we could have for storytelling, which is Grimm never judged Crowley, and Crowley kind of helps Grimm with his stuff as well. But also there would be the kind of like this pulling his weight, because I feel like sometimes in combat I can kind of give too much power to Grimm, but Grimm is also like a werewolf and a lich, whereas Crowley's just a craftsman demon, so he's kind of limited to some extent. So Grimm will always take the carnage, battle ready kind of state, or Crowley will take the other state of like making things come into play, selling things, that kind of stuff. But anyways, that was a moment that I didn't want to forget about. But ladies and gentlemen, hot diggity damn, we did it. That is the jumping off point that I feel like is the ultimate jumping off point. At this point, just to spoil some things for the future, the story now becomes about characters and assimilating them into this group. So one of the things is I wanted to make this base. I told you guys that I wanted them to have this base that they could upgrade. I thought it'd be really cute if we attached a human to this house, which could not only just be another character that they could interact with, but also giving that character like possessive tendencies, which I think could be really funny and fun. But also to kind of be a cool representation for like a broken human being, to being able to, like, if someone invests in you, kind to you, builds you up, stays with you, is loyal to you, all these things, then that person can help piece you back together very, very well. But anyways, for there to be this like kind of like mansion for Grimm to like recruit inadvertently people into his kind of sector, his group, his thing. So for me, that's kind of the whole subliminal like thing. So the next part of the chapters, the next like the thing that's gonna go on and on and on for a long time, if I do keep churning out these kind of Impossible World podcasts of this specific kind of story, this Hell Knight whatever. This is the next jumping off point of us going to meet like the first character that I want to talk about. But again, I think I may make one more part about the kind of time skip, which is just kind of like really quick ideas I had about this kind of in the middle part that I didn't know what I wanted to do with, but basically wanted to get to a point where him and Grimm, Crowley and Grimm, were both really, really like they were able to like they're in the shadows, but they're really, really smart and they know all about the dungeons kind of thing. They've learned really fast, all that kind of stuff. So I really wanted there to be this kind of in-between part, but that's only because I wanted there to be ways for us to kind of be that guiding light for other monsters that are about to jump into the dungeon. So the first idea that for a character that I really, really want to talk about, that I want to dedicate a fuck ton of time to, not a fuck ton, just a good chapter length to, is called the Sealed Oni. I think that could be a really cool idea. The other idea is that I have is, I don't know what it would be called. One of them, just to list off a couple that I think would be fun, I think it'd be cool to have some sort of Tinkerbell arc, some sort of like kind of like Tinkerbell level arc. I think it'd be fun, just like this kind of weird, unconventional monster. Another thing that I would love to do is an idea that I kind of seen from Akamaga Kill. No, that's not it. Kill a Kill, a Kill a Kill, which is basically a living armor. And to me, I think it'd be really cool if it was like a league of like vampire hunters and werewolf hunters that made like this armor, and then there to be this like Valkyrie like person that wore the armor, but she basically attained like the strength of both when she wields this armor, and that to kind of be her monster is this kind of like living armor that's fused with her to some extent. I think that'd be a really cool idea for a character, so I want to mess around with that. But then there's hundreds of different kind of like monsters that we could do, but those are the 3 that I have lined up that I really want to dedicate some time to actually doing and continuing. So that's what the future of this kind of chapter looks like. Now, with that being said, I think I may try to do one more. Well, I'm not sure. We'll see what the future holds, but I would like to continue this. But I also would like to kind of mess around with these other ideas that I kind of just have for just one-off podcast episodes. I think it'd be fun, like kind of like a brand new jumping off point. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the jumping off point that I kept mentioning. Where like this is the part where I truly feel like you could jump off and do 1,000 different things with your imagination, with your mind, with your characters, whatever you want. But this to me is just a great foundation of you experience Hell Knight. You know your monster, you experience the dungeons, you experience the world building in terms of like the dungeons and the shops, and now you have this base of operations that can be leveled up and upgraded to whatever kind of acceleration you want, and it ultimately can be like your guild, your clan, your family, whatever. Kind of breeding ground / house, you know, because it's like this giant mansion that every time you level up, boom, 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 gets bigger and bigger, and can have more rooms, can have more places, training arenas, yards, so many things. But yeah, that's essentially the idea. A living house was my last idea that I thought was really fun, especially the way that I did with like the broken human aspect of it, like what a human being that's a flickering light about to go out, and the representation for that I think it'd be fun to mess around with that as well. But also it takes the representation for like a maid, but that maid has had a really shitty streak of having really bad people in her life, so therefore when she meets someone who's good, it's like a breath of fresh air and a good solid punch of hope, straight to the heart kind of thing. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm not sure if the next part of this podcast will be a random idea that I wanted to execute on for a while, or if it's more of this story, kind of slightly bridging the gap of the 2 weeks time skip before we jump into like straight up jumping on characters and talking about them and stuff like that. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. My voice is gone because we've been talking non-stop very quickly for such a long time, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys like the ideas. Hopefully you guys can mess around with them in your head and come up with all crazy kind of ideas, and I would love to hear them in the comment section down below as always. My name is Logan _ Grin. Subscribe button to my right if you're watching this on YouTube, and 2 videos to my further right if you're also watching this on YouTube. I appreciate you dearly, and goodbye.